Hello, Chris.
What's up, Jason?
I've been snotty for like 3 weeks. Snotty by nature.
Oh man, I getting back from RailsConf, I had terrible sinus problems and stuff, and I think this Saturday I got back, I slept like 16 hours that day or something. I was wrecked. It was bad.
Yikes. That sounds no good.
Yeah, I'm good now, but boy, yeah, I was like, I'd be happy if this never happened again.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty sick on the way to RailsConf. Mostly like I was outdoors the entire weekend and I'm allergic to anything outside, anything and everything. So
Yeah, I had similar issues when I was up there, but
I thought
yeah.
I thought going to the Great North would be better on my allergies, but
No, turns out it was worse. How'd you find the conference?
it was fun. Uh I was so exhausted when I got home. Like I got home like noon my time and like I don't want to spend time with the kids, but I was like, whoa. But it was fun. It was nice. If you might didn't know, we shared a room and it was nice, like I don't know, there's part of me that was like, I like my alone time, I guess, but the other time it was always nice having like somebody to do the conference with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you get to go. Just anything you're doing, it ends up a little bit easier because you got somebody you can rely on for random little things of like, oh, we need to run back to the room for something or whatever
Right.
it is. It's kind of
Yeah,
handy.
and like, oh, we have to walk like 10 minutes to the conference. Like it's not like a boring, quiet walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I was on the Ruby on Rails podcast this earlier this week to talk about my experience in the conference. So if you guys want to check that out, go download that episode. But we're going to touch a little bit on your experience because I know one of the things is you started working on a new project during the conference. But before we dive into that, what'd you think of the talks and stuff?
Yeah, this was, I don't know if I'm ashamed or excited to admit, this was a conference I attended like the least amount of talks on, which is like, I think this was my fifth RailsConf. So, like, for sure, like, all I did was talks, but I didn't know anyone. Uh, and like, as I met more people over the years, like this year, like, the more I just wanted to like talk to people, which is, I guess, now where I get the majority of my value out of the conference.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar position, and I think a lot of people, the more that you attend, or like the further you get into the industry or whatever, you end up like the networking ends up being the most useful part of things, and then at the beginning you're like interested in the technology and all the talks and things, and at some point you're like, well, I've probably seen a lot of this stuff or experienced it by now, and for what you don't, you're like, well, I can just watch it afterwards because they're all recorded and will be published. But what I can't do afterwards is go talk to people. So I'm with you on that. I think it's like a thing that most people end up shifting over time from, attending talks to spending more time trying to talk to people.
Yeah, and it's like it wasn't because like the talks were bad. Like there were like we talked on the last episode, like there were a lot of interesting talks, but you kind of like nailed it when you said like they're recorded. And two, like a lot of those, like a lot of times when I watch talks, like they kind of like start to just like pique my interest on things, but like it's going home and like actually diving into a topic, you know? So
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, I mean, it's a limited amount of time, so they can't get super detailed into anything. And yeah, you end up just being like, oh, I want to read more about this or whatever. And um, yeah, the talks themselves can only be kind of a teaser in a way. So that'll be, yeah, kind of the same across the board. I imagine even for the workshops too. Like I know Ernesto did a upgrading Rails workshop, and I know he talked about like having people bring their own Rails apps, which is really cool. But I imagine like upgrading a Rails app takes quite a lot of time, so he can only kind of touch on some of the higher level stuff or the easier things, or something like that. That um, is just like something time boxed. With even though those workshops were what 2 or 3 talks long, you just can't dive in super deep on it. So
Yeah, caught the opening and closing keynote, and then a couple talks in between. DHH's keynote was really good. Trying to think back to if there's anything like.
yeah, he talked a lot about kind of we were gonna or we were thinking about this before that talk too, like the boot or burnout, and it's kind of like I liked his point on the sort of weird way that the open source projects have kind of evolved into. They're now trying to be salesy and markety to compete with like paid things. That was interesting. Like it is
Yeah,
super fascinating how that's turned out, where these open source projects are like everybody's got a logo and all this stuff and marketing pages and whatever, and that's just not how it used to be.
yeah, it almost feels like a requirement. Like,
Yeah, it really does.
nobody's gonna. It's not true, but like it does feel a little bit like, oh, people aren't going to use this if it's like not sexy enough.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like I'm not sure. Like he was saying, it's probably not a great thing, but it's probably also not awful either. But um, like the reason a lot of people got into all this was just because they enjoyed it and they wanted to contribute and build stuff for fun because they liked it, and that seems to be changing a bit, where people are doing it more for I'm going to build this so hopefully I can get Patreon supporters or something, and like support to continue doing this and whatever. And it's good to see stuff like Sidekick and whatever get financial backing and sell a pro license, but and make stuff sustainable. But there's also kind of like people are trying to default to that, I guess, from the beginning, and make it um and maybe only choosing to do some things because they think they can make money off of it eventually. Whereas like Rails was purely started out of like, hey, we're building this for our business, but it'd be nice if we just shared this with everyone. And they kind of did that for fun.
Yeah, I should also say that personally, like I understand like the trend towards that, because I am typically more likely to be, if like I'm choosing between two libraries, I am typically like more interested in the one that, like, how do I put it? It's like well marketed,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a level of care there at the same time.
Mm-hmm. It's
I don't know.
something you can maybe feel more confident relying on because, like Sidekick, if there's money going into it, then it's likely going to be better maintained. Um,
Yeah, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with libraries that don't do that. Like there's a lot of really well written Ruby libraries that are just like, here's the default like gem spec readme, and like they're great. It's just I don't know. It's the way
yeah.
marketing works. It's weird.
It touches on like this weird thing that happens where like a gem or a library or something that's open source might be really well maintained for 5 or 10 years or something, and then start to be less maintained because the creator of it has just like they moved on to something else, a different business or whatever, and they don't use that anymore, and so it stops getting maintained well. And there's like no good way of transitioning the maintainership over to new people. Um, and like people can fork on GitHub and like kind of move to their own version, but it's still like Google and everything's going to link to the original one. And you're going to have to go search through the like forked repositories and see if maybe there's something good and better maintained. But it just like things things don't have a good way of evolving over time still into, or to transition owners and things. And it's definitely tough because you have like some philosophies on how you want the project to work in the long run, and how do you transition that to people with similar outlooks on things. And I know Matt's, I guess, is talking about that a little bit. On he knows he's going to retire from working on Ruby at some point. So how do you move that onwards? And that's definitely a really tough question. I have no idea, and it doesn't seem like the open source community as a whole has a great solution for that yet. And there's just not a good process for it.
Yeah, I have negative amounts of solutions for that.
So,
Um,
um,
yeah,
what was your favorite talk that you did go
uh,
to? You only went to a couple, but
yeah, I went to Craig from St. Louis.
yeah, Craig Buchek. Hmm.
Yeah, his talk on using the repository pattern with active record. Uh, so we actually had a talk like that at Southeast Ruby last year from Chris Coleman, and I don't know, that it really fascinates me because, sorry, snotty, uh, like that. That's one of the approaches like ROM RB takes, and like he even talked about ROM in the talk, and I struggle because like I want to use like more of those patterns, but I feel like if I'm using active record, I should just like use active record. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. It does make sense, but that was kind of the point Craig was trying to make. Was like, what if we had the best of both worlds? Because active record's actually really good in a lot of ways, and there's some interesting things that, like change sets and things from Phoenix or whatever, like uh, offer you. And so I think he was trying to eventually, because he was talking about basically this new library he's building that is trying to merge the two into some interesting hybrid of them that gives you the best of both worlds. But he's like way early on that. So I was excited to watch that. Like, it seems pretty interesting.
It's
And
definitely something I would use if you launched it. Like at least try it out. I
yeah.
like. I want to use ROM so bad. Uh,
Yeah.
and there's like, I think there's even like a ROM Rails library. And then like I bought a book by Ryan Big called Exploding Rails, and it talks about, I think it's like using dry transaction and dry and using ROM in Rails applications. So like dry transaction is essentially like it's modeled after the railway oriented programming approach, so that like if you're doing a sequence of transactions, or like if you have service object, for example, like if something fails early on, you don't want to do the rest of the things. So like
Mm-hmm.
you just cut out right there. You cut off to like the failure track. You don't continue down the happy track.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's all really fascinating, and it's like it's something I really want to move to. I just like I know that we're not gonna do that at work. Like it's not like we use the interactor pattern at work, and it works well. Where we use the interactor gem, and then like I mean we're just I can't. It would be very difficult to walk and be like, hey, let's try to use a completely like different ORM, because like we're so invested in active record. So like that really leaves me to like do that kind of stuff on my side projects. Uh, but then the other struggle is like with some side projects, I just really want to ship them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then so it's like finding the balance of the right, like it's really like I just need to build an application that like has no deadline, like may never launch. So it's just tough because time is
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I feel you on that. There's no ability for us. It's funny because when you're learning, you have like, no constraints, and you can do whatever you want and explore all these things. And you feel like that's kind of what people do professionally, but it's not. You're limited by, I got to get this done by this time and whatever for work. And then if you're doing stuff on the side, you're like, well, I've done a few of these projects and tried some greenfield stuff and then just never shipped them. And at some point, you're like, I need to focus more on getting things out the door than I do like trying something new. And then it just doesn't leave you a whole lot of time to go experiment with brand new stuff. And I think that's why you tend to see a lot of companies like, they want to explore microservices or something so that they're like, oh, potentially we could just like, I could learn Go and rebuild this piece of it in Go. And it's also the thing that bites a lot of companies, like adopting Mongo too soon or for, just because it sounds good and their business doesn't really actually get any benefit from using it. There's all kinds of those stories, and then, it just goes poorly if you do that on work projects. So, yeah, it's I don't know, it's a tough thing to balance, I think. I definitely want to try some of that stuff too, and I just don't have the time. So,
I just had my aha moment.
what's that?
I should just like try and like teach some of that stuff so I have an excuse to like learn it.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to do some guest screencasts, I know a site.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I really like. For me, that might be the way I have to learn it right now.
yeah,
Because
it's a good point. I do get to learn all kinds of things because I have to just kind of, I get to do it for fun, and it does end up for me being actually, work I get paid for. If I do learn something new and teach it, like Vue or whatever. So that's a good idea.
yeah, because like I want to learn those things. Like I borderline like crave wanting to learn those things. I really like I've become friends with a couple of people in like the dry RB and like ROM community. Like we had Tim on the show. Like I just think what they're doing is so cool, and I want to use it. It's just like how.
Yeah.
But if I learn it like by like teaching it or just like sitting down and doing dummy projects, like then I'm probably more inclined to uh, be able to use it in new projects because I'll know it better.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah. That's a good
that
idea.
was a heck of an aside. So yeah, we we spent our nights locked in a hotel room with Andrew, coding away on something.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that I've like when you're normal. I mean, I work from home, so like I don't get to spend a whole lot of time with other Ruby developers. And like getting together at a conference is always a pretty, good time to kind of feed off the energy of other people and the ideas and things. And um, so we started working on a new project that I'll let you introduce, but this is something I've done kind of at like every conference. Like I want to go, but also in the maybe during the talks or in the evenings or in between talks, just like code on an idea that I've wanted to do for a long time. And I've really enjoyed being in a conference for that kind of, you know, feeding off that energy.
Yeah. So actually, like before I go into that, that is RailsConf Kansas City. That was actually the year we met. You weren't at the conference, but you came up to
Yeah, came
have a
to
beer.
visit, meet you. Yeah.
That's actually where we first talked about Laravel.
Oh,
Because I was like telling you all the things about Laravel, and now we're
so you
now,
put that seed in my brain. I
now we're
see.
idolaters. Uh, yeah. So that's actually a good segue. So at night, that's actually how I started working on Pay originally. Was I was like, I just want to port Laravel Cashier into Ruby. And I think like the first name was like Bank Teller or something like that. And it was a very, very poor implementation. Uh, but that's where I started like, cause I don't think maybe that was RailsConf 2016. It was 2016. We didn't have kids yet. Uh, and yes, like I was like, I have no like stress at home, like that is with me here at this conference. So I just went back to my room every night, like after the after parties. I remember I'd order a club sandwich up to the room and just code away. And that's like kind of one of my favorite things about conferences, like you said, is like, you know, it's even better this year because this is the first year I've worked on something with someone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so about it was February, beginning of February, right before I went to Vegas, I started working on a admin Rails engine, and uh, I got pretty far with it in like a couple of weeks, and then I didn't do anything with it like most projects in my life. Uh, it kind of was built out of. I remember when we were like first working on Jumpstart, they were like, "There's a lot of admin gems, and like they all do like certain things really well, but I feel like there's certain limitations you hit with all of them in different ways." And that was kind of a struggle we had. And I was like, what if we could like try and rethink this? I don't know. It was a very naive attempt, but I really liked where it went. And then I didn't work on it. And then you messaged me right before RailsConf for like, hey, are you still working on this? And I was like, no. Uh, but let's do it next week. And so we got pretty far with it. So essentially it's called Madmin, Madmin.
Pun intended.
Oh, so great. I was so proud of that. It's my proudest moment in life. I mean, my kids and marriage and all that. Uh, but yeah, so we're still working on it. We've got essentially the way it works is you define a resource, which like at this time lines up one to one with like an active record model. You define fields. So like they are class methods or class methods that you say like you do like a has one or has many, and you give it the association name. You do that, so if you say field, the key name, and then from there you give it a type, which we call a field. So you have like a text field, text area field, image field, things like that. You can choose also in that definition right there, like should it be in an index view? Should we show this field? Is this field editable or not? And it feels pretty good so far.
Yeah, I really like it. I've used these admin interfaces for, I don't know, a very long time because when I was consulting, it was a really quick hack to, add some sort of admin dashboard for people. But the thing was like, I never really used Rails admin too much. I used active admin quite a lot. But that one was like, you have to learn a DSL, which is annoying. And then you had to like, I mean, they encouraged you to write your HTML and Ruby in these admin areas, and that was always weird. With Arbre or something, whatever the library is for that. And then the thing that I found the most frustrating was like it doesn't generate. It just generates like an empty file, and then the whole admin interface just kind of is metaprogrammed for you, and so it's sort of invisible, and a you have no way to really configure little pieces of things. So if you wanted to change like the user dropdown instead of like loading every user out of the database to change it to like a user ID field just to type in a number, um, those were like things where you had to like rewrite all of administrate's generated stuff from by hand from scratch, which is like annoying. Like I would prefer if you just generated it, even if it was commented out, if I could uncomment it and then go change the little things I want to do, so much easier. And, there's just little nuances of that. It tended to be a little bit slow, but there was certainly those things of like the filters in the sidebar for your associations and things would like load every single user out of the database just to populate a select box, and you're like, not the best. Maybe we could do an Ajax version of this instead, but I was kind of like, man, the other thing I really wish was just like we had something that was kind of like regular Rails scaffold, so you can go in and add your own actions and things, and they had their own DSL for it. And eventually, I was like going to build my own, and right before I started it, or was going to start it, Administrate came out, which is more or less exactly what I was looking for. And it's like 90% of what I wanted, but there's a lot of little things that it just, they're a busy company, right? The Thoughtbot is busy doing plenty of things, so they haven't been able to kind of maintain it to support all the active storage and other things like built in. And I think this is kind of where Madmin spawned from, was like, maybe we just build something similar to that, and just do it the way we need for, like, we want to support all the like active storage and all those things built in and virtual attributes and whatnot. And I think that'll be a really good project for a new Rails admin. Can never hurt to have more like versions out there, but so far I really like what we've come up with. So like, you've been working on this for a while before RailsConf, right?
Yeah, I put a couple of weeks in of work a few months ago, and like
Because I
it
couldn't
really,
remember where we started from when we got to RailsConf. Because one of the nice things was like, you were sitting and coding, and we're not really pair programming, but like, you had Andrew and I to pick our brains on when you had a question of like, I wonder how we should do this, and we could all talk it out right there, and you could just dive right back into the code and do it.
yeah, that was really nice. So like, I had a pretty decent foundation laid. I ended up rewriting a lot of it, as one does, but yeah, that was the best part. I think we started on it maybe the night we got there after dinner, and like we talked it out. Like Andrew started like working on docs, and like I would just like lift my head and be like, "This is a problem," or like something I need to think through, and everybody helped me think through it. And then there were a couple of times where y'all had already started like preemptively thinking through things to where like when I lifted my head, you gave me an answer. I was like, "Yes." So yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun. I don't. It is a priority for me to get this out soon-ish. Uh, but what I think what we'll do is put up a landing page today, which will be tomorrow when this drops. And if like that's something you're interested in, I'd really love to like uh I'd really love to talk to you, like, and learn what your needs are and what you like, what you don't like. So if that's something you're interested in, if you can reach out to me personally, or you can also join the mailing list. It's madmin.dev. Uh,
cool. No, that's a domain.
M-A-D-M-I-N.dev.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I think there's a need for it, but also it's just good to have another option too. Um, but I like the approach to it. It's been really easy to like, go build stuff with it, and hopefully, all the rest of these features we plan on adding will be equally as easy to use. I know things just slowly get more and more complicated, but um, there's just so much with the it just makes things like customer support and stuff so easy to be able to drop in an admin interface like that. Like, I use one pretty much every day for um, Go Rails and Hatchbox. Like, if someone asks me for they can't remember how to log in or whatever, like, I can go confirm that, oh, you used a different email address or something. All kinds of little tiny things like that are really handy. Um, and none of them really have supported like file uploading and stuff very well. And it's kind of hard to do because this is all generic too. But I feel like the ability to customize it and make it specific to your app is kind of the real value here in the long run.
yeah. I I'm not sure like if this could be a thing we sell. I think there will be some aspect of it. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, we should talk about that because Laravel Nova is a paid admin interface for Laravel, of course. And I mean, the nice part about that is like you you have money going into the project, which means that like the quality of it can be high because if either you're really incentivized to work on it more and maintain it, or um, you have money to go pay someone to go help if you're busy. And then that just means that like instead of it stagnating like some of the other admins might over time as people come and go from contributing, like money coming in allows us to actually dedicate effort to that, which is I think really good and something that the Rails community really needs to do more of because Laravel is doing phenomenal with that, and it really really helps the quality, like the bar gets raised for everyone that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I also I also thought about like the Mike Param like sidekick model where like and love your opinion on this, like where there is like a good set of like open source functionality, uh, but then adding on features that are like paid. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the hard part about that is just where do you draw the line, you know?
Right.
And he has something that's pretty natural to like draw the line at, and maybe there's something similar for an admin interface, like maybe just a basic admin interface, but things like graphs or I don't know Stripe integration or something. I'm not really sure where the line gets drawn, but I would love to hear what people think as well. Like how do you make something like this that can make money, but can also be available for some, smaller version that's free so that it can be like sustainable in the long run and just get better and better and better instead of slowly degrade over time.
Yeah, that's one of my like fears is like I don't want to launch this and then like uh burn out on it, which like can happen also like if you get paid, but like I don't know, we've put so far a lot of time into this and like I hope that we can like keep the quality high.
Yeah.
Another like idea I've had is making it like pretty extensible. So like maybe making Madmin like pretty like here are all the things like you might want to use out of the box, and then like almost doing like a I'm even scared to say this word, but like a plug-in model, like a paid add-on model.
I
I don't
know.
know.
Doesn't Laravel Nova have something kind of like that? Like people are
Yeah,
building those.
I don't think anybody has any paid add-ons. I think they're all free.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, that would be cool. It definitely seems like a longer term kind of thing. It just doesn't seem super uh, easy to do for launch, if that makes sense.
No, totally. Yeah. I don't know. These are things going around in my head, and we can, people can, if you're listening, tell us what you think.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd love to hear feedback on it. I'm sure if people have used uh, other admin interfaces, they've faced frustrations with them over time, and there's ones too, like what was it called, Forest Admin, that's like a paid admin interface, but it's also like it's kind of interesting. It's like a a single page app hosted on their server, but then it just uses your app as a backend, and they just like expose an API for your models. It's kind of
huh.
interesting, and they're like trying to be an actual business out of it. I'm not sure what their pricing is, but it was like um something that's kind of evolved. They're like they think they're a funded startup out of France or something. They're pretty cool. And it's kind of I guess similar to what we're talking about, but not I don't know. We're wanting to like bootstrap something and like build just a little product that we can offer that people can use without having to like make a major kind of I don't know, take investment and do all of the funded company things. Like we want to be able to do things. I'd like to see more individuals be able to like, more people like Mike Perham who can launch a little thing for the community and run that to good success and not really have to go the route of we have employees and all this stuff. It seems like a great little, or there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for little things that make good money.
Yeah, the thing I want is like I want it to be so good that like as a Ruby or Rails developer, you like see this, you're like, this is a no-brainer. Like, uh, this helps me. Like, this is good. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It's my first my first venture into something like this. So, but
Yeah,
luckily I have you and Andrew with me, and
I'm excited to see how it goes. I've wanted to, just I tried contributing to administrate and just it's slow moving over there. And so I was like, the week before RailsConf was when I messaged you about like, yo, you still working on this? Because I'm ready.
if you're not going to do it, I am.
Yeah, that's basically what I was like. Okay, I need to move on this because, I mean, it's been one of the things that I use in Jumpstart, and it's like, well, if you're going to cause me problems, I'll just, I guess, rebuild my own. And it's not like, and the core of an admin is not that complicated. It just is like, well, I don't want to maintain a fork of administrate and never have any of my changes like merged in. Like I can go my own direction and like do it the way that I think will be a little bit more intuitive in certain areas and have, I think things like uh, active storage support built in and action text and that stuff just needs to be there. Like if you're building an admin for Rails, it should just work. And it should be ready to go like maybe before that comes out too, for like um action text and action mailbox. If you can build it while the RC is being developed, then you gotta make sure that everything works really well. And that's obviously something that's a bit harder to do if you're just doing it for free. So I like the idea of like, maybe a free version and then hopefully we can support it with a paid version as well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that is that's about all that's happened in my world outside of trying to wrap up a SaaS app I've been working on for the last 6 to 8 months, and hopefully it's going to
Oh
launch
man,
soon.
6 to 8 months and having that launch is gonna feel good. It's a
It'll
long time.
it'll feel good if we get a user.
Yeah.
But I have somebody working with me who's they're actually previously like one of my employers when I worked at a marketing firm, and so like marketing's like their specialty. It's not mine. So
That's good.
yeah, and it's the software is actually for like he's been modeling after like how could this help my business. So like it's like an actual like scratch that he's itching. So it's good. It's nice because it's kind of nice just to code and I'm involved in like some of the decisions about how the product like works and stuff, but like he's got the expertise. So he's in
Hmm.
that realm of people.
Cool. You'll have to share that whenever you launch it. I'd be kind of curious to see it. I'm sure other people would too.
Yeah,
Uh,
I will. So, well, it's been good to catch up. It's been fun to talk about Madmin.
yeah, as we're both kind of post RailsConf recovering, but
Yeah.
yeah, I will, I guess, be on vacation when we typically record next week. So, uh,
Oh yeah.
the other
That's
thing we should mention is we had the joy of recording two RailsConf episodes or remote Ruby episodes live at RailsConf with
it was
Justin
an
Searles
adventure.
and Justin Searles and Nate Berkopec. It was pretty fun, except for the recording location where we ended up next to the service elevator and
Idiots.
the bathroom where you hear the like hair dry or the hand dryers just go off every randomly once in a while. So
For the
hopefully
people
editing turns out good for those.
get off the like service elevator with the world's loudest equipment, and like you hear just the most intense conversations. Poor
Yeah.
Justin would be like middle of a sentence, stop, wait for the noise to go, and just continue. So
Yeah,
we got
without skipping a
to
beat,
do.
basically.
I hope it is. I hope it is enjoyable. And next year, if we do that, or at RubyConf, if we do that, we will follow the advice of our predecessors. And when advice, I say we will steal their idea and try and get a room at RailsConf.
Yeah, even if, it's tougher, but like going back to the hotel and recording there or something would even be better. But
Yeah.
yeah, it always seems like a good idea, but then the execution is a lot harder. So
Well, it's like we were up in that area like both the days before, and it was pretty quiet. And then the day we were up there, it's like all hell broke loose. It's like construction, and the the people that walked by with their keys jangling, like making eye contact with us. I'm like,
yeah.
do you hear your keys and see the microphones? Like,
Yeah, I bet you they don't really hear it at that point anymore. It's just
yeah,
a noise they tune out.
it's all right.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
fine.
looking forward to those releasing soon. So hopefully
Gosh,
the
they were
editing
such
goes
fun
great.
conversations.
They were really good. So
Oh,
I
they were so
really
good.
hope they turn out good.
I've never it was so much fun. I didn't want them to end, except for the fact that I was drowning in a sea of noise and I wanted that to end. So
Yeah, I felt the same way.
my OCD and anxiety were like hammering me.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, have a good vacay, and
Yeah, it should be good. I haven't had a vacation for quite a while, so a week off, no work. Hopefully, will be pretty nice. I'm looking forward to it.
good deal, my friend. Well, talk soon.
All right, see you, man.